So they were totally overlooking the man's part, and it was just the woman. Now the point is, religion is one thing, and a very, very healthy moral code is another. We're away from you. When somebody starts telling you how to think, or how to feel, or how to live a life in a way that's not violating the God-given rights of anybody else, but you're just living it according to the way you like, who is to say, who is to be the judge that you are a sinner? That doesn't make any sense at all. So the question before us today for each and every one of us is, if we're going to talk about sin, each of us has to ask ourselves the question, am I a sinner? Am I a sinner? And to answer that, we have to have the definition that we're going by. What is the definition of sin? Well, for religion, it's the deliberate disobedience of a religious law. If you deliberately disobey a religious law, you are a sinner. And then the consequences of that flow forth with all the depictions of hell. But wait a minute. Some of the churches say we are born sinners and that we are born unclean, unworthy creatures. So where does that come from? A baby doesn't deliberately break a religious law. Babies are pure, they're whole, they're healthy. How could they possibly be a sinner? Well, the church explains it that Adam and Eve were the first people that lived on this planet. Adam and Eve were the ones from which all of us came forth. That means that we have the DNA of Adam and Eve in us. Now, this is all mythological. It's all a story, but we'll get to that later. That we have the germ, the sin germ within us in our DNA because we came forth from Adam. And therefore, it doesn't make any difference if we sin or not. What makes a difference is that we have within us the potential. We have the potential to sin. And therefore, we are sinful and unworthy in the eyes of God. Now, the story of Adam and Eve is not meant to be taken literally, but it is a wonderful story that has a wonderful lesson involved in it. And we're not going to go to that today. But the story has been taken and it has been abused and has been used to declare each and every one of us not good enough, unworthy, a disappointment to the grand creator of the universe. So where did this whole sin thing come from? Before religion got its hands on the word sin, it was actually a very innocuous word that was used quite frequently in daily activities. And it was an archery term. If somebody shot at the target and missed the bullseye, it was called missing the mark or sin. It's called sin. You missed the mark. But sin had a deeper meaning than that. It wasn't just missing the mark. It is what caused you to miss the mark. Did the archer lose his focus? Did he shake at the last moment? Was he not concentrating? Was he not standing right? Did he not aim right? What caused him to miss the mark? That was the sin. And it was a source of learning. And the sin is you didn't focus properly. Aha, I can learn from that and I can become a better archer so I hit the mark the next time. But religion took it as missing the mark, not being good enough, being unworthy in the eyes of God, and sin became a dirty word. It's very difficult to use the word sin in a pleasing way. Well, maybe not so difficult. I didn't think about it. Anyway, so sin was a very innocuous term. Religion got a hold of it, and ever since then, ever since that time, 6,000 years, we have been belaboring the fact that we simply are misfits. We didn't quite come out right. We aren't good people. Now, at the end of the service, when the kids come up here and they sing, "I'm walking in the light of God," you take a look at them and you point out the sinner. And they're 3, 4, 5 years old. I mean, even the teenagers that come in, you point out the sinner. They're all good people and they make mistakes like we all do. But that's just part of the living process. It's part of the learning process. When it comes to missing the mark, each and every one of us has missed the mark our entire lives. The first time we tried to voice a word, we missed the mark. The first time we tried to walk, we missed the mark. The first time we tried to do our multiplication tables, we missed the mark. The first time we tried to write a paragraph in perfect English, we missed the mark. That's what life is. It's trying something, falling short perhaps, missing the mark, whatever you want to call it, learning the sin, learning what caused us to do that, and then trying again. Every single thing that's happened in our lives is a result of that repetition. See, the truth of the matter is, you are not a sinner by religious terms. The truth of the matter is, you are not going to hell after you leave this earth. The truth of the matter is, there is no devil that is going to tempt you or torture you. You know, wonderful myths to live our lives by and gain the lesson from it. But when it gets down to it and it starts to chip away at the blessing that we are, and it begins to chip away at the fact that we're the expression of God's Spirit, each and every one of us, that we came into this world with a good mind, we came into this world with a good heart, and we had a good life before us. There is no room in this day and age for low self-esteem. There is no room in this day and age to be shellacked by the sins of that other people charge us with. There's no reason in this day and age to feel anything but good about yourself. And that doesn't mean that we're the finished product because we're students of life, but what it does mean, this is what I am thus far, and I have the potential to become even more. I have the potential to become happier. I have the potential to become more loving. I have the potential to have more enjoyment in my life. I have the potential for good. And I'm not going to be put in a seat every Sunday morning and told that I do not deserve that good and that I am not worthy of it. If there's one thing that religion needs to do, it needs to leave that whole guilt, shame wagon behind. Unhook it from the wagon train and leave it there and move forward. And once the church starts supporting us as good people, we're going to start getting along better with other people. Once the church starts supporting us as good people, perhaps they can find good people in other religions. And we discover that it isn't necessarily essential for us to believe exactly the way somebody else believes. If a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Muslim, or a Jewish person is on one path that's taking them to God, who are we to say, that is not right and you are a sinner and you're going to hell unless you take the shiny path that we're on. As we go into meditation, I want you to just think a little bit about what we've talked about. Most importantly, I want you to think about yourself, because when it gets down to it, we can line up all the religious books in the world, and we can stack them 10 feet high, and they can be full of thousands and thousands of rules and regulations and dogma and doctrine, but when it gets right down to it, there's only two things that we really have to do. And the first is to treat ourselves the way we want other people to treat us. And that's kind of a reverse of the golden rule, but too often we are our worst enemy. We are our worst critic. So the first thing we can do is treat ourselves the way we want other people to treat us, and then begin treating other people the way we want to be treated. Those two things can totally change your life and totally change the world one step at a time. So as they move into meditation, just allow those words to fill your mind. Treat myself the way I want others to treat me. Treat others the way I would like to be treated myself. Those two simple things that we can practice. We'll now move into meditation.